back, everyone. I hope all you guys are doing well out there, wherever you are, whatever time it may be. Before I get started on these emails today, first I want to thank you guys for stopping by to listen. I still have a very strong belief that I have the absolute best subscribers on this entire platform. Absolute legends. And that goes for every single one of you that's listening. This is going to be another longer upload. So, some of these encounters today I handpicked for a reason. But not all of them, since some of them are just random. I'm trying to make sure to go back through the emails a little farther so people don't think I've forgotten about them. I regret to even admit this, but I'm an honest guy, so some of these encounters today I've had for over a month. I'm truly trying my best, y'all. I'm trying as hard as I can to keep up. It's just almost impossible. It's still shocking to me, actually, how many emails that I'm receiving. It's good for you guys to get to hear them, but it's also concerning on the other hand. The amount of Dogman that are being seen everywhere is pretty alarming. But we all know this, and I will stop blabbing and wasting your time as usual, telling you things that you already know. Before I get started, if you're listening and you've had an encounter of your own, and you would like to share it here on the channel, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. All you have to do is send me an email, and we'll go from there. My email will be linked in the description of this video. Thank you in advance. Now, let's get on with the reason why all of you are here. The encounters. Everyone grab a drink. Lock your doors and windows. Hit the lights. And let's get started. Tonight's first encounter. Hello, Reels. I'm not one for writing emails like this. I've always been a very practical, hands-on type person. I live alone in the woods, pretty much off the grid, about 10 miles away from my nearest neighbor. I built my own cabin out here, and for the last 5 years I've kept to myself. I'm not one to buy into stories of spooky talk either, but I'm telling you this because what I experienced this night is something that I just cannot explain. I'm hoping someday I can. It all started earlier in the day. I was out cutting firewood like I do most days. I was about 100 yards away from my cabin into the woods. The area around me is dense forest, thick stuff, but I'm used to it. The trees are, like I said, thick, and the wildlife mimics that. It's a constant presence of some animal at all times, so I'm always keeping an eye out. I came across this large, old tree I'd planned to fell and noticed something odd when I looked up at it. About 8, maybe 9 feet off the ground, there were these deep claw marks, long and jagged. My first thought was that I'd stumbled across something left by a bear. I know bears are here, and it would make sense for them to scratch up trees, but 9 feet? That seems a little too high, even for a bear. But you make your own decision on that. I stood there for a minute, staring at the marks. It was strange, but I didn't let it bother me too much. I've lived here long enough to know that strange things can happen in the woods. But I always just keep going and just assume that it's wildlife or an overactive imagination. Still, something about those claw marks stuck with me, though, and I could feel my gut starting to tighten up. But I had work to do. Things had to be done, so I cut the tree down anyway. As it fell, I got this unsettling feeling. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I felt like I was being watched, and not by an animal. This was a different feeling of being watched. It was intense. I turned around quick, expecting maybe a bear or deer or anything standing nearby. But the woods were still. Actually, too still. It didn't make sense. I've spent enough time in the woods to know what's normal and what's off. And trust me, this felt off. I didn't have time to dwell on it. I finished cutting the tree into logs, threw them in the wheelbarrow one by one, and started hauling them back to my cabin. I didn't see anything, didn't hear anything, but the feeling of being watched did not go away the whole time. That night, after it got dark, I was inside the cabin heating up some food over the wood stove. It was quiet, just a fire crackling, and I was trying to shake off that weird feeling from earlier. But then, just as I sat down to eat, I heard something. It was faint at first, hard to hear. But then it became a lot clearer. There was something outside, and it was scratching. This didn't sound like an animal digging in the dirt, but more like something dragging its claws over the wood. The sound was slow and like whatever it was knew that I was inside. I've heard raccoons and possums around the cabin before, and I'm used to the sound of animals, but this wasn't that. This sound was just not normal. It sent a chill down my spine. I grabbed my rifle out of the corner, but I didn't move. I just sat there listening. The thing outside stopped, and then I heard heavy breathing. There were these deep, raspy, growly type breaths coming from just outside the wall right beside of me. I could almost feel the heat of its breath through the walls, like it was standing right there. Completely freaked me out. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something. I wasn't sure what it was at first, but I caught movement near the window. I hesitated, and slowly, as slow as I could, turned my head. And I saw a large, dark shape just outside the window. It was standing, statue still. For a split second, I thought it was a bear, but no bear I've ever seen had that shape or size. The outline was just not that of a bear. Then the eyes, they were glowing, a bright yellow, piercing through the window. I couldn't make out much of the face, but I swear the shape of its head was like a dog, long and narrow, with pointed ears that seemed too big for the body. I just stared at the eyes, almost like I couldn't look away. I don't know how long this lasted, but when I finally blinked, the shape was gone completely. I didn't hear it leave. I didn't see it move. It was just gone. I sat there for a long time after that, too scared to even look outside again. I've lived here long enough to know that sometimes you don't see the danger right in front of you, but it's there. I used to laugh off the talk I'd heard from a few of the locals, the ones that said this area had a history of strange happenings. But now, I'm not laughing anymore. I don't know what I heard that night. I'm still out here, standing my ground. This is my home. But I try not to go out after dark. Nothing has happened since this, and I hope to keep it that way. You're doing a great thing, and I appreciate your time, as I know you're pretty busy. Whatever it was that creature made me feel, the emotions, the fear, I can't explain it. All I know is there's truth to some of these stories. I'm sure some people embellish a bit, but there is something out there. Something that we don't know about. Make no mistake about that. Thank you for your time, Reels. Stay safe. Jason. Tonight's second encounter. Hey, I'm Craig, and I've got to share this. It's been a few months, but this still messes with me a lot. This happened in early April of last year, 2024, in Colorado Springs. I was hiking up Pikes Peak with a buddy of mine, Tony. We're both pretty experienced with the outdoors, so nothing usually rattles us at all. But what happened? I just don't know what to think. We started our hike in the late morning. The weather was pretty nice, the skies were clear. It was a bit chilly, but not too bad for April. The trail was pretty quiet, just us and a few other people along the way. We hadn't planned to go all the way up, just a few miles for a day hike. But about 2 miles in, we hit a more isolated stretch of the trail where the trees open up into a clearing. It's not a spot many people stop at, but it's really pretty, surrounded by pines and wildflowers. Tony had stopped to take a picture, and I was just looking around when something caught my attention in the trees on the opposite side of the clearing. At first, I thought for sure it was a deer, but then I realized that this thing was way too tall and broad to be any kind of deer. It was standing with its back to us, just on the edge of the trees. I couldn't make out every detail, but I could see the way it was hunched forward. The size of it, the way its shoulders looked, were so broad compared to the legs. It didn't seem right. It was on 2 legs, but it wasn't walking or moving, it was just standing. At first I thought it might have been some kind of bear on its hind legs, but it didn't seem like any bear I've ever seen. It was too big, and no bear would stand like that. It slowly turned its head as if it knew we were there and wanted to scare us to death. It looked straight through me. Its eyes were huge and they were yellow. They seemed to glow even in the daylight. It had this sharp dog-like snout and long pointed ears that looked like they belonged to something out of a nightmare. I didn't even think. I just grabbed Tony and pulled him down behind a boulder. I whispered for him to stay quiet. We both stayed there watching this thing. It didn't move much. It just stood there like it was waiting for something. It looked like it was just watching us. We must have been crouched behind that rock for a good 5 minutes, maybe longer, before it turned its head away and started walking into the trees. This thing didn't run. It just walked off slowly, almost like it didn't care we were there. After it disappeared, Tony and I didn't say a word. I could feel my heart beating so hard I thought that I was going to pass out. I actually got dizzy at one point. We stayed down for a while, not sure what to do. The whole time it felt like the air was completely different, like we weren't supposed to be there. We didn't stick around for long after that. We just got up and made a quick beeline back down the trail, not looking back. The weird thing is, I've hiked that area tons of times, even after. I've never felt anything like that before. I know what bears, elk, and deer look like. This wasn't misidentification. And I've been thinking a lot about it since. I keep wondering if we did actually see a dogman, or maybe something else entirely. I don't know. Whatever it was, it just felt like it should not exist. Anyway, that's my story. I don't expect anyone to believe me, but I had to tell someone. Feel free to share this, just don't use my last name or any personal info. Thanks for reading. Craig. Tonight's third encounter. Real adventures. I don't know what else to say except that I'll never forget what I saw that day in Boise. I've always been a person that's not really into spooky stuff or cryptid things. But after this happened, I've delved deep, head first into the rabbit hole. and now I know there's truth to all of it. It was in June of 2023. My name is Taylor. I'm 34. I was out driving on the outskirts of Boise. I was on my way to meet up with a few friends, and I took a wrong turn. I ended up in a more rural area than I'd planned on, with just open fields and some scattered trees. It was around 3 in the afternoon. It was sunny, beautiful day, just one of those days where everything felt perfect. It was peaceful. I didn't realize how isolated I was until I noticed how quiet it had gotten. I was driving past a large field, maybe a mile or so from the edge of town, when I saw something. Now, I don't know who'll believe this and who won't, but I don't really care. There was something standing by a fence line in the middle of the field in broad daylight. This thing wasn't in any hurry. I thought it was a person at first, but after inspecting it for a few seconds longer, it was clearly not human. This thing looked tall. I would guess over 8 feet. Its body was covered in black fur, almost blacker than black, if that makes any sense. But it wasn't like a bear's fur. It looked matted and missing in spots, almost like it was shedding. The head was what really set it apart from a bear. It was like a wolf, but the eyes were huge and wide, and they were staring straight at me. I don't know why, but something inside me told me not to blink, not to move. It felt like time itself slowed down. I watched it for what must have been 30 seconds, and the thing didn't move at all. It just stood there, looking right back at me. Then it tilted its head to one side, almost like it was saying, "What are you looking at?" Again, it was broad daylight. The sun was high in the sky. There was no mist or fog to obscure my view. But I could feel the hairs all over my body prickling. I don't know why I didn't take a picture. I guess I couldn't look away long enough to pull out my phone. If you've ever experienced this, you know I was paralyzed with fear. The phone was the last thing on my mind. It was like every survival instinct in me was telling me to drive away, but my body just would not cooperate. Finally, this Dogman thing turned and walked into the tree line at the far end of the field. It just walked, but the way it moved, its long, loping strides, I've never seen anything move like that. It was definitely not movement similar to a human or any animal I've seen. When it disappeared into the trees, I snapped out of the daze I was in and took off. I don't know how long I drove before I pulled over and noticed that I was holding my breath the whole time. I still don't know if I should have called the police, but who do you even tell that you saw something like that? I kept thinking maybe I just imagined it. Your mind will go to weird places. But the feeling I had, it wasn't something that I could just get over. I've looked up other stories since that, and they all seem to describe something very similar to what I saw. But I can't tell anyone about it without sounding insane. I'm hoping hearing other people's stories might make me feel a little less crazy. Feel free to share this. It's just too weird for me to put my name in here, so Taylor is fine, as that's not my real name. Thanks. Tonight's fourth encounter. Hey there. My name's Casey. I'm 27 and I live in Greenville, South Carolina. This was only a few months ago. Me and a couple friends went camping in the mountains just outside of town. We've all been friends since high school, so we know each other pretty well. But this was something none of us could have explain, or anything we would have expected. It was early November of 2024, and we decided to go camping at a spot we'd been to before. It's right off Highway 276 near Caesar's Head State Park. It's a place we used to go for weekend trips. The trailheads were still open, and it's got a nice mix of pines and hardwoods, perfect for a quick getaway from city. That night, after a long day of hiking, we sat around the campfire just talking and joking around. There were 4 of us: me, my best friend Drew, his girlfriend Natalie, and my cousin Eric. It was dark, but the fire was still going strong, and we were enjoying the night. We hadn't been drinking or anything, and we don't do drugs, just your standard campfire snacks. Out of nowhere, without warning, we heard something coming from the trees. It wasn't the usual sounds you'd hear from raccoons or smaller animals. This was heavier, like something was walking and it was heavy. But it didn't sound like a bear or anything we'd heard before. Drew got up to go check it out, thinking it might be a coyote or something. He walked a few feet into the trees, but then he just stopped and didn't move anymore. He was froze. He was gone and stood like that for maybe a minute before he walked back over, and his face was as white as a ghost. He said, "You need to come and look at this." His voice was very shaky, and he was acting really weird. He kinda scared us, so we all got up and followed him to where he'd been standing. I'll never forget it. We all saw it. Off in the distance, maybe 60 yards away, standing in the moonlight. It was tall, like really tall. It was standing on 2 legs, its head almost level with the branches of the pines. We couldn't see it too clearly because of the trees, but it was shaped like a man, except for the long pointed ears and the snout. It was more animal than human, but its posture was too upright for it to be anything else. We all just stood there watching this thing, and then in an instant it turned and walked back into the woods. It was gone as fast as it had appeared. Nobody spoke. No one knew what to say. We were all in shock, I think, not sure whether to be scared or confused or both. I've never felt that kind of fear before. It wasn't like we were in immediate danger, but something about it, the way that thing was moving, the way it stood there just watching us. It was truly terrifying, to say the least. We didn't stay much longer. The vibe was off, you could say, and none of us felt like sitting around a campfire anymore. We packed up and hiked out in the dark, talking in whispers, the whole way back to the car. We didn't even joke around like we usually do. I still don't know what we saw, but there's no way it was a person in a suit. The height, the way it walked, everything just was all abnormal. I tried looking up stuff about it afterwards, and that's how I came across a bunch of Dogman encounter channels from around the country. Now, I can't say for sure that's what it was, but the descriptions I've heard definitely fit what we saw. Feel free to use this. Thanks for reading. Casey. Tonight's 5th and final encounter. My name's Alan. I'm 39, and I live in Central Oregon. I've been meaning to send this for a while, but I wasn't sure if it was even worth sharing since I didn't get that close to whatever it was. But the more I think about it, the more I feel like what I saw was a dogman. And maybe someone out there listening lives close to my area and they can relate. This happened in October of 2022 in the Ochoco National Forest. I was out solo hiking a lesser-known trail east of Prineville. I try to go out there a few times a year to decompress. It's not a popular area, which is exactly why I like it. No crowds, no noise. It was cold that day, but clear, and right around dusk. The sun was low and throwing orange light across the trees. It was really beautiful. I had stopped for a break on a small outcropping that looked out over a valley. Across from me, maybe 300 yards away, was a ridge with some tall pines and sparse underbrush. That's when I saw movement. Something stepped out of the trees and stood there for a second. At first, as everyone else, when you see something this large, I assumed it was a bear, 'cause what else could it be? But this thing was standing upright. Not just for a second, it stood there still, like it was looking back across the valley right at me, which seemed impossible. The shape of it was weird as well. It was very tall, narrow in the middle, with long arms that hung down too low. The head was more like a dog's than a human or a bear. It had tall, pointed ears and what looked like a very short muzzle. It reminded me of a Rottweiler, just a lot longer hair. It was silhouetted against the sky enough that I could make out its profile. I pulled out my phone to try and zoom in and take a photo, but as soon as I lifted it, the figure turned and took off back into the trees. It didn't really run, it didn't seem startled, just calmly walked away. I sat there frozen for a few minutes trying to make sure of what I saw. The only thing I could think that maybe it was a person in some kind of weird ghillie suit, but that makes no sense out there. There were no other vehicles nearby, no trailheads close, and that thing moved too smooth to be someone playing a prank. I've told a few close friends, but I don't think they believe me. They never laugh or say anything, but I can just tell they think that I'm making it up. One of them even said that it had to be a bear, and I was mistaken. I've seen bears stand. Stop blaming the bears. This was not a bear. I'm looking forward to hearing you narrate my encounter. If you do share this, thank you. If you don't, that's fine. I don't need credit. Just don't use my last name. Thanks. Alan. Legends, friends, family. I hope y'all enjoyed tonight's upload. As this has already been pretty long, I'm not going to drag it out. I do want to thank each and every one of these people for trusting me enough to send me their encounters. I really hope I did them justice. I'm very thankful that all of you escaped those situations unharmed. Well, physically unharmed, anyway. If you've made it through this entire video, thank you so much. From the bottom of my heart, truly, thank you. Please, everyone, remember to like, share, and if you're not subscribed, consider doing so. It's free. I want as many people as possible to know about these creatures' existence. This is why I ultimately started this channel, after all. Thank you all for the continued love and support. And a big shout out and a huge thank you to the channel members, which I'll throw your names up on the screen right now. You guys are absolute legends, and I hope you're blessed beyond measure. The link to the channel membership will be in the description along with my email. Well, that's going to do it for this one. Everyone stay safe out there, and until next time, my friends, watch over your loved ones. Keep your head on a swivel. And as always, good night.